What sort of mystical death grip does Ronnie Radke have over the music industry? I find myself asking this all the time, because if science had anything to say about it, I think his career would have naturally just died and become a fossil more than a decade ago, as he would have been a relic of the past, but instead, falling in reverse, somehow more popular than ever before. A new single, Zombified, is going against cancel culture. They are feeling confident after getting a platinum certified single, Popular Monster, which I liked more than I thought I would as somebody who hates Ronnie Radke. And I know, me and Ronnie, our beef, our whatever you want to call it, goes way back. I think it was like 2013, the first time that we interacted over my hatred of the track Alone. And I'll admit that maybe my bias gets in the way sometimes when it comes to talking about Ronnie. But I've tried to keep my nose a bit more clean in recent years when it comes to inserting myself into something that I view as drama. That included me leaving Twitter and not really picking fights the way that I feel like maybe I used to, even if it was unintentional, but I also don't want that to prevent me from calling out issues and problems that I actually do see a problem with, and Ronnie Radke is literally waving like a million red flags right in my face. If you haven't checked out the song Zombified yet, then essentially it's Ronnie's take on cancel culture, and he's saying everybody's turning into zombies because we can't say or do anything anymore. And to a degree, I can understand where he's coming from. And for a few years, we were in this tumultuous period where it felt like everybody was kind of figuring things out, like what's okay, what's not okay, I don't want to offend anyone. And I get that. I hate the feeling of having to walk on eggshells. And again, I kind of exerted myself, is that a word, instead of inserted? I took myself away from a lot of those dramatic situations because I didn't want to have to deal with that, and I kind of recalibrated. So I can see how it's frustrating, but when you're Ronnie fucking Radke, the things that you're talking about and saying, oh, I can't do this because it was okay 10 years ago, but now they're gonna come back and cancel me for it. The things that he was doing and saying were not okay then, we were just ignorant, and I think to this day, he still is. Now, somebody like Ronnie, though, I think you can only plead ignorance for so long because you have so many tools and resources just right at your fingertips, especially people surrounding you, to know what might not be okay, what is extremely insensitive. And Ronnie talks in depth to Loudwire. He's kind of going on to one of their hosts about how he feels like he has to tiptoe around, how you can't say anything, how he feels like he has to be more sensitive in interviews, and obviously he made this song Zombified with his band to kind of rail against that. And it gives you the guise of this big, gargantuan, kind of metal-leaning song, big gnarly breakdown, but it's kind of working in some more Tom McDonald-like personalities. And if you know anything about that clown, it's just pandering to the crowd for the sake of making a profit. Just look at what Skillet are doing too. Ronnie Radke said to Loudwire, "I'll never apologize because something I said 10 years ago was literally okay then. If I said something in the 90s that's not okay now, it's unacceptable. Come on, it doesn't make me a bad person. It would make me a bad person if I continued even knowing it's not right. There's just a fine line you gotta walk. It feels like you have to walk on eggshells. It's hard to be any type of celebrity now." Now, what I'm finding odd about good guy Radke here is that he's not a good guy now. It's not that, oh, everything he did was 10 years ago that was so bad, he really cleaned up his act and he turned things around. No, you don't have to look very far at all. I mean, I'm talking transphobic tweets, threatening violence even towards the likes of me on Twitter, using the R slur often and loudly, and just even being insensitive towards 9/11 victims. If you name it, he's probably said something along those lines. And I think he gets away with it because he's always been so upfront about the fact that I am aware that I am an asshole, so he wears it like a smug look on his face. And then you just don't really think about it too much because maybe you're brainwashed by your enjoyment of the music so that you can't really see the person behind it. This is a man that not 10 years ago, in recent times, has admitted openly to cheating on his pregnant wife multiple times, to being a piece of shit that throws mic stands into the crowd, hurts fans, kicks bands off of tours because fans are chanting the other band's name instead of his. That ego is like a woolly mammoth, and I wish it would also go extinct. Radke went on to say that he feels like if people aren't given the chance to grow, it's just ridiculous and it can turn into shouting matches. And I think that's a true statement in and of itself. It's just that you have to back up growth with actually giving evidence because actions speak louder than words. I don't think that anybody with half a brain is believing that Ronnie Radke is a good person, is just somebody who's doing it for the love of music and cares so deeply about each and every fan. Not that any artist out there is a perfect human being, but some are just not even trying to conceal anything. It's like he's walking in with an AK-47 strapped to his chest, firing away, and you're all just up there with your hands up saying, "Shoot me next!" Oops, was that too far? Was that too insensitive? Was that too much on the shots fired there? Well, I wouldn't want to hurt Ronnie's ego at all. I wouldn't want to offend him in any way. So let me just recant that. Actually, in the past 10 seconds, I've totally changed. I am no longer that person. How dare you try and cancel me for something that I said 10 seconds ago? The problem is not just Ronnie Radke, but I think it's kind of hilarious how he parades himself around as this changed individual, and how channels like the Punk Rock MBA will prop him up as good guy Ronnie. Here's his redemption arc, but he hasn't done anything to change. Do you look at the man's Twitter? Just because he deletes the tweets doesn't mean that they didn't happen, and I say that as somebody who has made mistakes on Twitter, who has picked fights that he shouldn't have been in, and has said things he's regretted in the past. I grew up in Christian school. I used words that I am not proud of at all. In fact, I am ashamed of the power that they had behind them. But the problem and the difference between me and Ronnie is that I admit those things in the past that I did were actually bad then, not okay back then. I was ignorant to it, and I grew to the point where I no longer stand by those things and have removed those things from my life, from my vocabulary, whatever they needed to be. This man is approaching 40 years old. Good guy Radke does not exist, and if you believe that he does and that he's actually a great person, I'm sorry, but you're fucking delusional. Not every single issue is political, and when you're belittling somebody about things that they cannot change or something about who they are, their identity as a person, then you can go fuck yourself. It's as simple as that. Let the door slam you on the way out. Ronnie Radke is a man that has shown his true colors time and time again, yet nobody seems to bat an eye, at least not in his fan base. And I just feel it's absurd that a man who was so prone to violence in the past, being linked to an accessory of a murder, not committing himself, obviously, but doing jail time for violating his parole and everything like that, the escape the fate drama, to years later still just being transphobic, using these harmful words and going out of his way to be a dick to people, even people who were his own fans, who were saying maybe you could make a slight adjustment. He doesn't care because he is the center of the universe and he's always going to be. So the sooner you stop worshiping him and people like him, then I think the better off we all are. Does good guy Radke exist? How long until Ronnie comments on this video publicly? Let me know in the comments section down below. Please leave a like and subscribe if you happen to be new. If you want to see another video that I've done on falling in reverse, you can tap here or tap here for problems I have with episode. All of my socials are in the description down below, and I'll be back soon with more on Beyond ARTV.